playing villains?
I do actually, yes.
You're good at it too.
Well, I get cast a lot as villains, so I have to get good at it.
What is that about? Do they just say he's got the look of a bad guy, or what?
I think, yes. I think they see something behind my eyes. And think,
are you going to blame it on your sons again?
I think they just see, God, there's something not right about him, and they think he'd be ideal as our antagonist.
This is going to be very unprofessional, by the way, because I blew all my questions at the round table. But one thing, I was just interviewing Lynn and asked her, how does a girl from Texas playing a princess of Mars have a British accent? I figured it's probably because all of your other Martians were Brits. Is that something that Andrew actually said, okay, we want the royalty to have British accents here, or what?
I don't know, but I suppose he probably did, yeah. I suppose her dad was Kieran, he's Irish, he's not a Brit, but he's, I suppose, yes, we forced her to have that English accent.
So she was like a fish out of water there. But...
Well, I think, she did a brilliant job, but it was...
Oh yeah, she did well.
Doing an accent is always, not always, but most of the time, it's a pain in the arse, and it slightly cramps your style, I find anyway, but I don't think Lynn found that was a problem, but... I did suddenly realise I suppose she had to fit in with the rest of us, although maybe we were all just fitting in with her. But I think also there's possibly almost a convention in a big Hollywood film that the how can I say, the more sort of classical parts, or the people who come from a more sort of classical civilization tend to have British accents. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, you guys do it better than the Americans. You can always pick out an American doing a British accent, but it's harder the other way around.
Well.
It's that classical training, I think.
I think it's more to do with we grow up on American TV, which of course you don't grow up on English TV.
That's true. Well, I was in England for a couple of years in the late 80s, and before they had, cable. And there's just 4 channels, and it seemed to me like the only shows that they were showing then were like Dallas,
Waltons,
yeah,
Starsky,
but we didn't see any British shows unless you watched public television.
Yeah.
So you're probably right. It's just because you heard it all.
Yeah. No, and it's true all over the world. The whole world gets American culture, whereas American culture gets very little of ours because they don't need it.
Yeah. So you've probably answered these things a million times, but pitch me on John Carter. How would you promote this?
Well, I suppose I don't know how I'd promote it, but what appealed to me about it was that it was. I've never been wild about sci-fi or fantasy, and with this, I think what he's done is he's filmed a western and a sci-fi epic, and it's several films in one.
Lots of genres there.
Yeah. And the way they all link up, i.e., in terms of traveling to a different world in a different time with a different creatures, which didn't really appeal to me in something like Star Wars. It really appeals to me in this because it was, I don't know, maybe I was more interested in the past than the future, and in this way you just see time travel and world and traveling between worlds and meeting strange creatures in a different way. And I'm not saying this very well, but the excitement of that, of going to a different world and of falling in love with a alien princess, or of defeating an alien villain, or of having a superpower even though you are a mere earthling among these extraterrestrials. I think the film makes all that incredibly appealing to everybody.
Yeah. Was there a discussion that Andrew sat down with everyone and said, okay, we got multiple genres here, because I just wonder if there was probably this was more of a discussion with the producers and when they were coming up with it, but to sell something that's got so many genres in it, was there a discussion about how that was going to be portrayed, or how that?
Well, the only, I mean, as you say, you discussed that with the producers, but the only thing he said to me was that he wanted to make a film that no one had ever seen before, and that and the way he did that was by shooting, I suppose, what could be described as a science fiction epic, with all the modern technology, a great deal of modern technology in terms of CGI and everything, on film, sometimes with a pair of tights over the lens, which is what they did in the 30s in Hollywood, and using airships that were, you know, made of wood and brass and rope, and I think that was a brilliant way of showing something that we hadn't seen before, because you tend to think in a sci-fi film that everything's got to be futuristic, and that it's worlds that are in some way super advanced to us, and this is what's different about this one, I think.
Well, it is pretty unique for being 100 years old, and I like the fact that Andrew, like, even the doors, he talked about how they would create, you know, how would it's a new way to look at a door, you know, or a window, and how the palace was laid out, things like that.
Yeah, and the way that the new way of looking at a superpower, he can do those huge jumps, and it makes absolute sense. But it's brilliant because it's actually quite a useful thing to have. But it comes across, as I'm sure a superpower would, as a hindrance, as a pain. You know, something you have to learn and deal with, and it's not something you particularly want. But actually, once you've got it, it's a great power. And I thought that was a really interesting way of showing your hero, who was a very ordinary guy and an ordinary human, suddenly get this superpower. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be good. Too bad you're not in the sequel.
Well, unless they make a prequel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.